Thunder rolled like iron barrels across the coral sea as the Yongala pitched into a wall of black water. Lanterns swung from hooks, throwing wild circles across the saloon. Crockery slid, crashed, and shattered. On deck, the wind tore at voices until orders came out as shapes of sound rather than words. Passengers braced at the rails, hats pulled down, oilskins flapping. Somewhere forward, a horse screamed in the dark hold, iron shoes clanging against steel. A blast of rain blew sideways through a seam in the companionway door and died with a long, tired groan. The steamer drove on, blind in rain. The SS Yongala had been a proud addition to the Adelaide steamship fleet. Built in 1903 by Armstrong Whitworth on the Tyne, steel-hulled, 350 feet long, and fast for her size. She ran regular passenger and cargo service up and down the Australian coast. The crew knew her quirks. She rolled in a head sea but answered the helm. She could make Brisbane to Mackay in good time and push on toward Townsville with coal to spare. On this March run in 1911, she carried 122 people, men and women on business, a stockman heading north, a nurse traveling to a new post, even racehorses stabled below. Warnings had gone out about a tropical cyclone moving across Queensland, but notices on shore did little for a ship already underway. The Weather Service posted storm signals at ports and lighthouses. Telegraph lines clattered with updates. Out at sea, the Yongala relied on what her officers could read from sky and barometer. She left Mackay in the afternoon of March 23rd, after daylight brought a break that looked like a door left half open. The master aimed to make Townsville by morning. By evening, the barometer slipped, the wind freshened, and the sky closed. At Dent Island, the lighthouse keeper watched a dark shape pass north in hard rain around 6:30 p.m., her navigation lamps blurring like smudged stars. He recorded the sighting and noted the rising wind. That line in a logbook would be the last certain look anyone had of the Yongala alive. The storm thickened behind her, curling down the coast with a tight, grinding eye. Seas steepened, windows hammered in their frames. In the engine room, men worked stripped to the waist in a heat that turned to steam each time the hatch opened. The triple expansion engine thumped on, steady as a clock, while coal dust turned to paste on skin. Up top, the captain kept the ship close to the rum line off Cape Bowling Green, where flats and shoals reach far into the sea. If he bore too far west, he risked grounding. If he gave too much easting, he risked running straight into the worst of the cyclone. The compass card spun and steadied. The wheel fought against hands gone numb with salt. The crew lashed everything that could be lashed: hatches, ventilators, deck cargo. The passengers kept mostly below, seasick and silent, listening for the pattern that told them the ship still answered the sea. The bows bit, climbed, and fell with a shock that cracked through the hull like a struck bell. Late that night, as the barometer fell and kept falling, the margin between a safe ship and a doomed one narrowed to minutes. A beam sea could roll her far enough that water found a path it was never meant to take. A green wave could stove in a companionway and flood cabins before anyone could dog the door. A shift of cargo could turn a list into a heel that would not come back. The line of reefs east of Cape Bowling Green waited in black water, hard as knives and easy to miss by a mile or two in rain that came sideways. Somewhere in that field of hazards, the Yongala met the exact wrong piece of the storm. When the storm finally moved on, the towns waited. Townsville scanned the horizon. Mackay checked arrivals and found only absences. Telegrams flew. Relatives gathered at station houses to read pasted notices, each update a thin hope. Search launches combed the coast. Debris began to wash ashore: an overturned lifeboat, a hatch, a broken chair, the sad proof of a horse thrown from its stall and drowned. No bodies at first, no messages in bottles. nothing like a last note. The Yongala had vanished as completely as if a hand had lifted her away. Newspapers guessed at the manner of death. Some said she must have struck a reef and ripped open like a can. Others argued she broached to and flooded through broken skylights. The lack of a wireless gave reporters a villain they could name. If she had been able to send her position, a tug or a steamer might have beaten the storm's ragged edge and brought help. There were urgent calls to equip passenger ships with radio. There were promises that lessons would be taken. In the homes of the lost, the only lesson that mattered was the empty chair at a table and a trunk that would never be claimed. The sea kept the secret for nearly half a century. Fishermen told of a patch of water off Cape Bowling Green where lines snagged and nets tore. Divers in the 1940s and 1950s worked from rumor and tide charts. In 1958, a team finally located a steel hull lying on her starboard side in about 100 feet of water, tilted like a house caught in a slow-motion fall. The length matched the Yongala. The fittings matched too. The sea had not scattered her. It had laid her down and closed a gate over the place. What the divers saw stayed with them. Portholes like blank eyes. Railings softened by rust and coral. A companionway yawning into rooms that had once held conversation and light. They found the ship whole enough to read her shape, but broken enough to make clear there had been no time for an organized escape. No lines still tied to davits, no hint of a launch that had splashed free. Whatever happened in that night had been fast. A capsize under the hammering of a beam sea. A drive onto the shoals followed by a roll that drowned the lights and the people beneath them. 122 lives ended without a single survivor to say which blow came first. Protection orders followed. The Yongala became both grave and reef. Over the years, the wreck bloomed with life. Soft corals like flags, giant groupers big as furniture, turtles sleeping in the lee, reef sharks cruising the rail. On calm days, divers drop through green water that clears as they descend, and the ship looms up like a building at the edge of town. The current can be fierce. The sea still owns this place. Those who visit move quietly, hand over hand, reading the outlines of cabins where passengers once hung coats and set cups back in saucers between lurches. Back on land, families had to make do with paper, lists of the lost, a few photographs, marriage notices that ended in a single black line. The cyclone of March 1911 wrecked piers, toppled trees, and stripped roofs from houses along the Queensland coast, but its worst damage lived invisible under the surface for a long time. The Yongala's name turned from timetable entry to question, then from question to pilgrimage site. Every generation asked if the outcome could have changed. A better forecast might have kept her in port. A wireless might have marked the spot. Those thoughts ride on top of the same fact. The storm was bigger than the ship. Today, the Yongala is one of the world's notable wreck dives, a point of pride and a point of mourning. Guides brief visitors on the current, the depth, the rules. They remind them the ship is a tomb. The color is breathtaking. Schools of baitfish turning as one, the hull furred with life that has made a home from loss. For a few minutes you float between two times, the night when lanterns swung and voices rose in fear, and the present, where air bubbles stripe upward and fade. The surface gleams above. You rise and break through into sun, but part of you stays with the steel below. The Yongala's doomed voyage began as routine and ended as a blunt lesson, the kind that leaves no survivor to tell the cabin-by-cabin story. What remains are the fixed points. Departure from Mackay, the Dent Island sighting, the cyclone field over Cape Bowling Green, the debris, the years of doubt, the discovery, and the reef that grew over steel. When the wind rises in the tropics and the barometer slides, You can still stand on a quay in Townsville and feel the echo. A ship once aimed for this harbor and never arrived. The sea closed over, and only the current remembers the exact minute the lights went out. Thank you for listening to The Sunken Ledger. Subscribe for more true stories from the depths.